the see-all and end-all, the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega. Gaze upon my power and quiver. Puny, chosen, and dead. How do you expect to defeat me with such a pitiful weapon? Oh crap. Oh no. I have been killed by the chosen and dead.
Hey, it's me from the future! So now that you've seen the sword made in its final form, I guess you would say, I'm going to walk you through how I got it to look like that. First order of business is I have to 3D print the pieces. That took about 6 months because it had 22 pieces, all of which took between 1 and 4 days to print depending on the piece. I don't actually have any footage of that because I still don't have a time-lapse camera, and obviously I can't leave my phone pointed at it for 4 days. Even if I could, that would leave me without a phone for 4 days, which is no good for me. But first is to 3D print. After that, I have to glue it to a dowel rod for structural stability. So after the glue up, which took probably about another month, and then I'll have to get rid of all the excess glue, and then of course there will be gaps in the printed pieces, because if you're printing anything this large in this many pieces, it's very common, especially if your skill level is as low as mine, to have warpage. I mean, some of these pieces are freaking huge, so there will be warpage, and I'm going to have to deal with that most likely by filling in the gaps between, because that is not only better from a material standpoint, but also for time than just reprinting a piece that takes 4 days to print. So after I have filled in the gaps, I'll have to sand it again. Then I'll have to paint it, which, if I remember correctly, I think took about a week because I had to do several coats. And I don't think I got footage of that either because all of that had to be done outside. And I think I went with 4 layers each of paint, and then 4 layers of clear satin polyurethane protectant. And then I went through and added some of the detail, like the blood stains on the tip. I just did 1 coat of those before doing the protectant. After I'm done painting it, I'm going to have to put a handle on it. I'm pretty sure I also lost the video to that as well, but that one was just a very thin leather handle that was glued down the length of the handle of the sword. That one's nothing big or anything like that, but it did take quite a while to do. So, since this is going to take quite a little bit to show you, I say we get started. The next part of this greatsword build is going to be to put the pieces over this 1-inch dowel rod, like so. I'm probably going to have to shape the dowel rod in some places to get it to fit, because some of the pieces bowed or warped, I guess you would say, during printing, and may not necessarily exactly fit. That'll be a lot easier than reprinting the pieces, since these take between 1 and 4 days per part to print. But the general plan is, now that I've got the middle part filed down here, I'm going to put wood glue in this, which should bond pretty well to the PVC, and I know it should bond to the wood. Well, after I've roughed up the wood a little bit so it'll stick better. I'm going to glue the inside of the sword and glue the dowel that it's going to go on and place it on there. And on the parts that aren't exposed, or on the parts that won't be directly touching the dowel but will be touching each other, I'm going to super glue them And my hopes is that if I do that, then the pieces will stick together long enough for the wood glue to cure, and it'll create a much stronger hold. And then I can go in and fill in the gaps and make everything look all nice and neat for painting.
Many months later.
So this is what the sword looks like so far. As you can see, it's still got a long way to go, but at least it's looking like a sword. Now that everything's together, I need to fill up some of the gaps. Like in here, there are some gaps between the guard. I'm not sure what happened there. I might have improperly clamped it. I also need to sand off some of the stuff here where the super glue left a residue, and maybe fill in some of the places where there are gaps, maybe put some actual epoxy, because it doesn't look like the wood glue did very well. There are also some huge gaps here that I need to fill in. I don't really have enough room to move this thing around in this room. What I'm doing now is I'm mixing up a 5-minute epoxy to glue the sword pieces together. This will help me fill in some of the gaps between some of the pieces where they warped in printing. This will also give it some rigidity and add to the structural integrity of the piece. This epoxy is nothing special. It's just a standard 5-minute epoxy that I got from Harbor Freight, and it works surprisingly well on this PLA. You just mix it up on a surface. In my case, it is a notebook here because that's the closest thing that I had to me that I could easily then just cure the epoxy and then throw it away. And I'm mixing it up with a plastic knife from my kitchen because I don't have any popsicle sticks left and I'm too lazy and impatient to wait on Amazon to ship me some more. This epoxy dries to the touch after about 5 minutes and fully sets after 24 hours. Not only will it add to the rigidity of the sword, but it'll also help fill some of these ravines in, so it's easier when I go in and put the epoxy in so that I can make everything all flush and level and neat to prepare it for painting. For this next part, I'm going to be filling in what is left of the gaps after the epoxy set and smoothing out the majority of the rest of the gaps in the sword with a Bondo putty type thing. What this is going to do is it's going to not only fill in the holes, but it's going to give me a surface which I can smooth down and I can paint, so that'll make it a lot easier to put the paint job on the sword, and it will give it a much cleaner look in the end, as opposed to if I did something else like if I had melted some plastic on there or something like that. This takes out some of the prep work and gives me a much nicer finished product. Let's get started. Now that the Bondo putty has been applied and it's dried, the next step is going to be to sand it flush. I'm going to do this in several steps. I'm going to start with an 80 grit, then move on to a 120, then a 200, and then probably a 400. I don't think I'm going to go any further than a 400 grit, because since I'm painting it anyways, that should be more than enough to make it look all nice and neat and make the paint really pop.
3 weeks later.
No! I broke the tip of my sword. Okay, it happened quite a while ago, and I'm reenacting it now because it happened off camera. Let me show you what I mean. was sanding on the tip of it, and it just fell off of the surface that I was sanding on and broke. I don't know. Actually, I can't do that without hitting it on something. So yeah, the darn thing broke. It just fell right off and broke the tip. And it's completely my fault because I should have been paying more attention and I shouldn't have gotten a hurry. And now I paid the price. I tried to burn it on there a little bit more, or burn it back on there because I've heard that works better than epoxy for something like that. And the pieces were kind of weird. But, you know, I guess that's what I get for getting in a hurry. I will press on though, and I will learn from my mistake. Cut to a couple weeks later, and it's mostly painted. I put 4 coats of paint and 4 coats of clear coat on this. I get it that that's probably a bit overkill, but I want it to last a really long time. I let the clear coat dry for 1 week before switching sides, mostly because it rained every day for like 2 weeks after I got the first one, or this side done. But as you can see, I masked this bit off here with some tape and then painted the rest of it and put a clear coat on it. And I did the blade in black, and I put the red, you know, kind of like the blood and rust on the end there like it is in the video game. I used a satin clear coat, but it's still got a little bit of sheen to it. What is next is I have to take this tape off of it that was protecting the guard while I was painting the blade. Then I have to go down a certain length on the blade, whatever I feel is good, honestly, and just tape that up so that I don't get a bunch of gold on the blade. I need to paint the guard, and then I need to put a handle on it, which will probably be like a cheap belt or something like that, because I want it to be leather wrapped, not cloth, because I feel like cloth will show more of the imperfections and where the handle's hexagonal instead of being completely round. And then the making the sword will be done. Alright, now that the sword's done, it's time for some of that sweet, sweet B-roll. Hit it. And there you have it. It has been over a year in the making, and it has consumed most of my life off and on for that time. But one Black Knight Greatsword from Dark Souls, I'm really, really happy with it. And if I had some things to do differently, or if I had it to do again, or if I ever revisit, I probably will do a few things differently, like maybe get a better 3D printer, or make the pieces out of something else. And I'll probably also be more careful when sanding, but as of right now, it's done, and after this video, it's going right above my TV, and it's not moving until I do. Thank you all for watching. I hope this inspired you to make something of your own, something that really touches you, something that you love and you're passionate about. If you liked the video or disliked it, have constructive criticism, just want to say, hey, you know what to do. I really appreciate you watching on this really, really long and exciting project. And remember, when the gears start turning, anything is possible.